Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the latest episode of Facecheck. Myself, Dom, and LS here to break down this shortened but heightened in terms of intensity LCS weekend. A couple seasons ending, a couple seasons moving on to Worlds, and lots of questions moving forward. We always start with a quick one. LS, how are you?
Well, you know, I've definitely been better. I mean, I think there's like 3 videos that are out on my main and highlights channel covering like the TF Blade and the streamer drama because my God, has it been it's been a whirlwind. I'm actually just Walter White. So that's how it is, you know? Yeah, I mean, Thorin might be esports, but I am Riot Korea. That's what I've learned in all of this. So.
Oh, I thought you meant cooking meth. Never mind.
No. What? No. What?
Yeah,
All
just,
right.
I was trying to follow. I was going to ask you, like, after the show, you know?
That was not the improv. That was not the yes and I expected there, Dom.
You know, I'm rewatching Breaking Bad. I'm like almost done with the series because I never actually gave it a proper watch. I kind of like watched it when I was. I think because it was coming out in like season 2 when I was competing. So I was watching it like on an iPad in a plane, like can't hear half the time. Like this is before technology was like that insane. Like the iPad would like freeze. I mean, like, you know how it was. So now I'm actually giving it a proper run through. So I've got all the, like, if he brings up Heisenberg, I've got all the references on point. We can go deep.
This is amazing. This is actually really good. Yeah, that's really good.
Dom, how are you?
I'm good. Same as always.
Good. Tell everyone one more time. You're on your what arc? Are you doing?
I'm on my I almost died arc, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to just try to be as healthy as possible. It was a catalyst. Those 4 hours I spent on the bathroom floor was like, it changed something in me, man. It made me a different person. It was an experience.
Tell me about this. Tell me about this incident.
So pretty much, so I've had stomach problems like my entire life, essentially. I've had stomach problems my entire life. Like I used to have to like do endoscopies when I was a kid. Like my stomach acidity was through the roof. There was just a huge issue with my stomach, and I had to like have surgeries and like all this type of bullshit like growing up. It started when I was 16. It like peaked around when I was like 21. Even when I went to Korea, like if you watch like the G-Bay documentary on Dignitas, part of what he mentions is like that I got super sick when I was in Korea. Well, like that was before social media was huge. I wasn't like a streamer, you know, I was just competing, and we had matches every 2 weeks. So people didn't know like how sick I was, but I was like going to the hospital frequently. I went to a bunch of doctors in Korea. I actually thought Eastern medicine was really good. Like just the way that they tried to like, it's weird to say because it sounds bad, but there's almost like a more, like spiritual aspect to medicine, at least. Like when I like saw doctors, you know, like it was more like all right, like how are you feeling type thing, instead of it just being like purely medical. And I think that ended up helping like just resolve my stomach acidity, just going to like hospitals there, getting IVs when I need it, and then eventually just like acclimating to the food while I was in Korea. But pretty much because of this, every now and then I just have stomach problems. Like I'll have one day. At this point, probably every year and a half. It used to happen like every like 3 months or so. But at this point, like I'm just kind of over it. It's like every year and a half, I'll have one day where I'm like fucked. Like I like my stomach like is just destroyed. And it's so hard to describe the feeling, but it's almost like I could specifically identify like my stomach organ. I could feel all of it, like the whole organ. Like it was all on fire inside me when I was sick. And it just like it started like throbbing. I started like cold sweating. Like it was just a whole thing, and I was just like moving between the toilet to the bathroom floor for like 4 hours. And this period like changed I swear that this experience changed my life. I was like, you know what? Like I'm gonna eat so fucking clean from now on. I'm not gonna fuck around at all. Like I can't eat too much spicy food. I'm just going to make sure that I'm like, that I'm getting through it, because I want to minimize this as much as possible. Like it was so like. Yeah, it was just a huge mental test.
Well, here he goes. He goes from Dom to Dom Goggins.
Dom Goggins. I'm going to write Post-it notes. Like, you're a fucking pussy. Like, what, you feel like you're going to throw up? Then throw up then. Like, Dom Goggins, yes.
Yeah, well, I wanted to remind everyone here about our friends over at Esports Bet who launched the new initiative, Watch to Earn, promotion just by tuning in to your favorite streams you can get 3,000 ESC per hour, 50% more for partner streams. It can be converted to USDT rewards, and Esports Bet will be adding exclusive prizes and bonuses down the line. For more, head on over to the affiliate link in this YouTube video and sign up to the Discord channel. They can get you set up there over at Esports Bet. Thanks to our friends at Esports Bet for making Facecheck possible. Guys, let's dive into it. Not a lot of series this week, again, as it always is, but some huge surprises. Let's start with seasons that ended, because we had Team Liquid upset, takedown, I guess finish off the 100Thieves squad that just could not put all the pieces together, with TL advancing on the lower side of the bracket. Let's take a look at that series with a little bit of a tighter lens. I mean, TL kind of disappointed to be here. They got upset by Energy. Everyone had TL moving on in that series from last week. But then this week, TL able to bounce back after a little bit of a fight back with 100Thieves. Dom, what did you make of this series with Team Liquid and 100Thieves?
Well, it's definitely a weird series because you had Closer just playing like Rel in the first couple games, and it looked so off. Like, it just doesn't feel like it makes sense with his playstyle. And it just looked like there was a fundamental disconnect between, Doublelift and Closer, how they wanted to play around bot lane. Every single time that Closer visited the lane, it felt like Closer's either diving too deep, he's diving on something that Doublelift doesn't want to follow on, or like Closer is actually making a good play and Doublelift doesn't know that he's going for a play. And it just felt extremely strange to watch the dynamic there. TL obviously had Summit doing Summit things. He's picking Kennen, he's getting huge CS leads, getting caught later on, just doing standard Summit stuff. But it just felt weird to watch the series because it felt like 100Thieves was the better team for portions of games, and then they would just stall out completely and TL would come back. It's like 100Thieves would get to a point where they're ahead and then they just wouldn't do anything with their lead and just wait for TL to do something positive, and then TL would just take over the game. It was extremely weird to watch.
Ellis, what did you make of this series?
I thought Team Liquid, at least when, obviously compounding onto everything that Dom just said, but when Team Liquid would get advantages, at least they played the advantages out a lot cleaner than they were in weeks prior, where they'd get advantages and then they would just do completely haphazard engagements. They would force things completely needlessly, and then the game would just end up completely going to shit. So in that regard, I think it was actually really good for Team Liquid whenever they would get into advantageous positions. The other stuff, obviously, in like 100Thieves is Quid is just non-existent. So not even just Closer being, having a very off series. Quid is absolutely invisible inside of the series. And then he also had like the the job security Tristana build in the very final. Like, I had Busio on my stream the very next day, right, for the co-stream, and I asked him about it, and he said that if he speaks, he's in big trouble. So I think his own teammates, I don't think they were very happy when they saw the Trist build, but I'm pretty doubtful that Quid's gonna still be here next split.
Really?
That's so tough because he just got here. Like, he got here late because of visa issues. Mm-hmm. There were times where there was promise. First time leaving the country, it just feels tough.
Okay,
but I understand.
I disagree in that there's times where there's promise. It was like I forgot who I was talking with. It was on one of the co-streams, and it's like Quid comes to NA, and he's supposed to be this 1600 LP whatever Korean player, like not 16, but like he's up there, right? He's in the thousands, right? LP, and then he's literally laning against LCS mid laners that struggle to get out of Diamond. Right, they struggle to get out of Diamond, or they're like low masters and stuff, and he's doing nothing. He's going even in lane versus some of them,
or losing.
It's bad,
losing lanes. He was just losing a lot of lanes.
It's terrible. Like, when there is like over a 1,000 LP gap between you and the enemy person, and you're not playing for counter picks, or even when you get the counter picks, you're still just going even in lane. There is a really big problem. And then his itemization in so many of the games is, there's no other way to phrase it. It's just beta. And in a lot of games where he's supposed to itemize either correctly, right, like the build path, like what the champion is, Or even you would just expect like riskier itemization or something. He just goes full defense in all of the situations, and it just makes no sense whatsoever. So 100 Thieves ends up relying still on Doublelift, which is amazing. I don't even know. I actually think that they would have functioned better with Bjergsen just still being there.
Definitely. I don't even think that's a question. I mean, Quid, the weirdest thing about him is that when you're supposed to be this good, and the whole, narrative was that he could play everything, right? So if you give this guy a counter pick, he'll be able to play all the niche counter picks that make lanes really, really difficult. Like he would be similar to like Cream over in LPL, where if you give him and if you just blind an Azir into him, like he can play an Akali or something that's going to give like some spice to the game, give you another angle. But it felt like Quid could only play 3 champions. It felt like he could play Tristana, Azir, Jace, and then I guess maybe if you want to put a fourth, it was like Ari sometimes. That was all he could play like the entire year, and it felt like he wasn't even picking for situations. It was just like a priority list of, this is the best champion. If that's not there, I pick this. If that's not there, I pick this. If that's not there, I pick this. That was how he did his thing. It was very weird to watch.
Yeah, I guess if that's the thinking, very straightforward bans then from TL. Just there's the Jace, there's the Azir. Show us what you got. And wasn't always a lot in the tank. Did win on Tristana once, but the itemization you're talking about is going not getting a Lord Dominic's early. Is that the major issue that Quid was doing, and instead opting in for like a GA?
I mean, it's like the GA
it's any
and
other
item. Yeah, I mean it's like it's bad.
All right.
Well, like you could rationalize, like in this game, like you definitely need an LDR. But like if at least if you want a BT, then he's going damage. Then he would go like then you're greeting a BT and you're getting an LDR on 4. The fact that he went a GA is like, if you ever have your GA pop, the fight's already over and you've lost anyway. Like how do you ever need a GA in this game? There's never a situation where the GA will alter the fight at all. You're going to play the team fight the same exact way, but you're just going to have less damage than you would with another item.
All right. Well, Quid under fire here. Wanted to get your thoughts on this 100 Thieves season as a whole, right? The confusion, I guess, if you will, on what happened to Closer. Kind of thinking maybe this is the Bjergsen effect and he's got to change the way that he plays. And then you're like, maybe it's Quid and you're seeing flashes of it a little late in playoffs. Or a little late in the season, but Closer never really got going. Busio, I think, probably had some of the highest highs, but also had some stinkers. Yeah, Doublelift, who couldn't really turn back to form that you're used to seeing from Doublelift, or at least that we remember from the NA GOAT, or one of the NA GOATs. And Someday, who was solid. I mean, he held Summit in check, and Summit was the best player in the Energy Team Liquid series. What did you make of this 100 Thieves season here, LS?
I mean, I think I think the 100 Thieves season is obviously much worse than spring. I wonder. I mean, there's also the drama stuff that happened right towards the very few last weeks where Busio was apparently supposed to be benched for bio. Yep. And that it didn't end up happening, and 100 Thieves denied it on Twitter, to which Evie just stood his ground and basically said, no, I have sources, and then there's no response. So, like, is there inner turmoil at 100 Thieves? Like, what is going on? And, I mean, their gameplay, it was a lot more lackluster than in spring. So, even though they brought in Quid and things are supposed to get better, I feel like things got a lot worse. And when you look at a lot of the other teams in the league that improved, like TSM, right, as a team/org that didn't even exist, 100 Thieves had so much more resources than so many other teams in this league, and yet it looks like, again, they regressed. I mean, it's bad. I don't think anything positive of it.
I mean, I think they were clearly the 8th best team when you look at how the other series transpired. Dig versus TSM, I think both those teams looked more competent than 100 Thieves. They were the 8th best team, and they're putting resources into this team. Like they're getting like an exciting import, or what they believed was an exciting import in Quid. They have Someday, who's like probably the second most stable top laner in the history of the region behind Impact. You have Closer, who was like MVP candidate. He's somebody who's dominated a finals MVP level shit. You have those players on your team. You have the NA GOAT on your team, like the from player, North American player, GOAT, not of the LCS. You have the NA GOAT on your team, and you end up in like 8th place, and you don't look good at any point. And the thing that's so weird about teams like this is it gives me those vibes of like that CLG roster in 2021 that had all those veterans on it, where it's like you have enough veteran presence on the roster that you should be able to figure out some of these easier late game macro situations, but this team didn't have any advantage strategically as well. So I don't know, it was really hard to watch them play because it feels like they're so far under the sum of their parts that they're never going to get it together, and they never did get it together. I mean, they were fighting for a playoff spot. Like, they were very close to not even making playoffs in the first place. And if it wasn't for FlyQuest's early struggles, I think they probably didn't deserve to go. I think FlyQuest might have put up a better fight, probably would have put up a better fight versus TL or just in the first round than 100Thieves did. So it was just weird to watch. I think the whole year is just an objective failure. When you think about years and how to evaluate them, I think the biggest way to, or the best way to do it, is to try to draw a comparison between placement and how much they spend in the league. And when you look at this 100Thieves team, like, they should be better than Energy. They should be better than like Immortals for sure. They should be better than TSM for sure. They should be better than Evil Geniuses for sure. They should be better than Dignitas for sure. So like, when you take all those teams out, you're like, oh, so that's like what, at worst 5th? Like, they should be competing in the top 6. At worst, they should be 5th. And they're just not able to do it. I don't know. It was just very weird to watch.
So, last question on 100Thieves. Your only player on the LCS roster that is under contract for next year is Quid. Who do you try to keep? Who would you try to keep? Anyone?
It's weird. I don't know. Like, there's two different angles. You either go like the veteran angle, where you're like, all right, like, fuck the newer players, and you just keep veterans. And you try to plug in just imports that are going to make sense. So like, you would, kick closer, kick Busio. You'd try to find like the best, import support you could find to pair with Doublelift. Doublelift's always thrived with like import supports. And then you just try to like get an NA jungle that has promise. Like, maybe you just take the other end of like the EG jungle swap, whichever one they don't want, something like that. I feel like that's an angle you could do. If you want to get rid of Quid, I think that's definitely possible. I think there's a lot of NA mids that made noise. Like Insanity, for example, I think would be great on this team. I think pairing somebody like Insanity with somebody like Doublelift is good, because I think Insanity gives you a little bit more of that like firepower, that like, that it's weird because Insanity's been in the league a while, but it's like he has that like interesting playstyle where he's looking for counter picks. He's trying to like progress the game. He wants to do things in the game to get ahead. And I think that Doublelift kind of needs some of that on his team. And what ends up happening with like with Quid and Doublelift is they just end up farming most of the time. They're farming mid, they're farming bot. No one does anything. It's like they're catching every wave, but it's like, so who's going to be the person that actually gets things going? And there was no one on the roster. So I think that's an angle. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know if they really want to keep Busio. I don't know what Doublelift's situation is. Maybe Doublelift thinks that maybe Doublelift wants to retire. Obviously,
he wants
Lena,
to play. He stated he wants to play.
Yeah, he stated he wants to play, and then Lena stated that that she wants him to retire. So
where did she say that?
Twitch chat.
Is there a screenshot?
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
okay.
I could probably find it.
Okay. Well, while he's finding it, conflicting reports there for Doublelift's future here. But I was able to have to sit down with him after they got eliminated, and he was thoughtful.
Do we know what his medical thing was yet?
No.
Not public?
He just said it was internal bleeding, but that was it. That's all I got. So nothing else other than what was tweeted out. But I think it was just internal bleeding with some of the food stuff that he was eating. Internal bleeding sounds bad, though. I mean, that's not something you're okay with. The two other players that are under contract for 100Thieves as well are Tenacity and Sniper. So they have 4 top laners. They have Tenacity, Sniper, my boy Jenkins, and Someday. I mean, how about this? I'm gonna float this out here. Again, Someday is a Hall of Famer for this 100Thieves roster. It's like home. So maybe he stays. Let's say you get Doublelift to stay. You've got a floating support in Vulcan. Thank you. You can roll that there. You got a floating support And Vulcan, Insanity. This could be a roster that has an extra import slot, right? Maybe it isn't Doublelift. Maybe it's Vulcan plus import support, or import AD carry. Maybe it's Doublelift Vulcan and import mid laner. You know, there are ways to go around it, but there's the tweet that Lena put out. And this 100T's roster left with a lot of questions as they move to the 2024 season, and they'll look back on the 2023 season as one where their streak of making to the finals and making it to Worlds has ended. The only team with a vet or two that we've seen reach the highest heights who had their season end. On the opposite side of the lower bracket round one match, it was Dignitas and TSM that gave us a entertaining 5-game series, and Dignitas, the team that comes out on top. So in terms of ranking, an upset there, but TSM not making it through. TSM, questionable future. Lots of questions ahead. Let's take a look at the series itself, and then we'll dive into what this means for this historic organization, their fan base, their players, and all of its legacy. 5 games, the distance here, Dom.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good series. I was rooting for TSM by the end of it, which was kind of weird because I'm normally a TSM hater, but I just wanted to see Insanity succeed so much because I felt like he was just one of the most fun players to watch. Yep. Just in the entire LCS this year. And, you know, like just the fact that he had the balls to pull out the Xerath pick in the final game, and he was doing well. I mean, he was providing things for the team, and then his team made a couple mistakes, and suddenly the whole game is lost. I was sad to see Insanity lose. I just hope that he keeps an LCS spot somewhere. I feel like he's proven that he is an effective, like, good player in the LCS. And that he definitely deserves a top 10 spot. The fact that this guy was playing in amateur last year is just ridiculous.
Yeah, not right. Academy. Amateur, y'all. LS, what did you make of this series when you think about it?
Series disappointed me for some reasons. But, I mean, I'll get into it in a second. So, obviously, I think TSM losing is very bad. Because I think that they are actually better than Dig. The games were really, really, really bad. I mean, I think that even in game number 5, if Insanity just has a different build on Xerath in the game, then it's unlosable. I mean, the game should have been unlosable, to be totally honest. Like, the game state they were in. I think TSM are a better team than Dig, but they just lost on the day. And that, I mean, that's just the way the cookie crumbles, right, in NA. I think that, like, the Jace games were just not it. I don't think the Jace games for like any player in North America is actually it. Just
maybe Palafox.
It's rough, man. The Jace games are just a nightmare. Yeah, I don't know what to think of that. I think some of their team compositions were like kind of wonky, but like as Revan always says on my stream, they just like as a team they have a different perspective on what is going to win in NA, even if they realize that it shouldn't win. In terms of like draft power level. Which was kind of ironic because in Game 5, I mean, I feel like it's an unlosable draft, and you know that's why. Of course, that's why they must lose. So it sucks. The tilting thing is that I spent probably like I don't know, like 10 hours or something, coaching Insanity on like Malzahar, before the series because I thought that they were going to use Malz. And then there was like 2 different games where there were spots for it, and then they just didn't pick it. And then Revan said after that they were like considering it, but then they just got nervous. Yeah, I don't know. Disappointed. There's still hope though. There's still hope. LEC is in 2 weeks.
Oh, for
what? For Malzahar?
Absolutely.
Not for TSM.
Listen. Exactly. I'm the amount of people that reached out for Mal's coaching, there was 4 mid laners, okay? There's still hope.
Okay. All right.
Man.
That was the futures there for you all at home. If you see a Malzahar pop on up, obviously LS had his hand in that pot. Jeez.
There it is.
Yep. Man. You know, Dom, you brought up a point that was... I felt the same way. You and I... maybe all 3 of us, have been pretty vocal about not liking TSM, the org. And sometimes the crazy fans, not all fans, but the crazy fans for TSM that just pop off the handle. But I sat in the stands for that final game 5, knowing that this could be the last game here for like one of these vets for Hunter, for Turtle, for Jensen, or for Santorin. And to see Turtle outplay the Zaya Rakan dive on the bottom side of the map at Tomo and Poom, I understood the TSM chance. I finally understood it. Because now I was like, okay, cool. I am cheering for the player of this team, and this team happens to be TSM, but Turtle outplaying that just felt great. Did Poom and Tomo play it great? No. You saw shades of why like CLG didn't want to use the Poom anymore, and they moved on. Energy moved on. But it was still just an awesome moment for a player who's, given everything to the LCS since the inception of the LCS. And have like one of those like, career moments. And it was like, oh no, the plot armor is here. Dignitas isn't going to make it, but the Jensen to Worlds plot armor is just a little bit stronger, despite the fact that he played well early, and then afterwards, I think he tapered off. As we said, like Insanity got to show what he's made out of, and hopefully Insanity lands in the squad. TSM now, questions moving forward. They made their announcement earlier this split saying they're looking to sell. They're looking to go to a major region and be Worlds ready. They're unhappy with the way that the LCS has handled things and moving forward, and understandably so. And they're one of the few orgs that have options to do something like that. The other ones being Cloud9 and Jack, maybe Team Liquid and Steve. But Reggie has taken that stance here with the organization. They have new leadership coming in. This feels like the end of an era. This feels like that was it. And if they went out with maybe not the bang that they wanted going to Worlds or Step to Worlds, but a series that kind of highlights where TSM's at, which is losing to Dignitas. Do we feel like TSM losing here with their couple of vets, and just overall these two series, and FlyQuest earlier, is this a changing of the guard in terms of players in the LCS? Dom?
I'm not sure if there's a changing of the guard. I think what we saw in this series is that like some of the newer players are just still not better. Like, even though Wild Turtle probably is not going to get much better than where he is, he's still just better than some of the AD carries like in the league. So I'm not sure if they're actually going to be moving on from him. Even Hanser, who I think was the biggest question mark coming into the series, actually ended up performing like pretty decently in a lot of the games. I mean, he was just fine. He wasn't a liability. Thinking about where Rich was, you would think that Rich was just going to completely fist him. It's not what happened in the series overall. So I don't know. I don't necessarily know if like these players are done in the LCS. I don't know who's good enough to replace them. It just seems like these guys are better than, other players that would be coming up at this point.
Right.
Nick, what do you make of all this changeover here in terms of the 2023 playoffs and the players that aren't finding themselves in the thick of it or going to Worlds?
I mean, it's going to be a very long off season for a lot of the players, and I am curious like what a lot of them are going to end up actually doing, because the off season is going to be so long. And I think there's so many question marks in the air about like LCS 2024 in general. What is going to happen, especially with the direction that like the teams are going. Are a lot of the players going to do like an extended boot camp in Korea? Will they have Riot accounts? Will they get banned anyway? I mean, these are all questions that we're all, we're all wondering around, around this time.
I was wondering where you're going with this.
It's fine. No, but it's scuffed. The TSM era ending. I wonder what org is going to replace them. And is TSM going to be the only org that's leaving LCS? That's another really big question. Because again, last year, there were two orgs that potentially could have sold out to really large content creators. And some of the orgs didn't even have to surrender like the entire slot. Like they just wanted majority and stuff, and it didn't happen. So is something like that going to happen at the end of the year? Is LCS
I was going to buy
different?
TSM. I'll just leak it here. I was going to buy TSM.
There it is.
And I was going to not let Reggie work in there anymore, but I decided against it. We couldn't come to terms. There it is.
Tragedy, yeah.
Yep.
What I can say is that apparently, unless something changes, so at the time this episode comes out, probably it will have happened or something. There's like, TSM wants to keep everything intact for like the sale.
Kind of like
or
energy.
like whatever. Huh?
Kind of like NRG.
Just like NRG. Yep. Yeah. Identical. Yeah.
Well, that's really hard because looking at the database, you have Haunter is gone November 21st, along with Turtle and Chime. Your 2 players that are under contract are Boogie and Ruby are under contract through 2024. Insanities was literally like elimination game. It was in the database. It says upon TSM summer LCS elimination. So
Yeah.
theoretically,
Insanity
he should be
requested
removed
that.
from the database already.
Interestingly enough,
Yeah.
that was Insanity request.
Yeah. On the topic that you're talking about, LS, though, like teams possibly selling, the rumor is there is a team that is already sold.
Really?
There's a team that has already sold, and it's just a matter of time. So when this episode comes out, you heard it here first. It was a smart move.
It's not TSM.
That is not TSM, correct. So that
Is it Rage
I
Immortals?
have had 2 sources
Rage.
confirm this, and it makes sense. And then
Damn.
we'll talk about it when we get there.
Is it a good sale? Are you happy with who's coming in?
I'm happy with who's going out. How about that?
Going out? Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy with who's going out. All right. Well, a bunch of new players getting opportunities to head to Worlds. This might be the most new players we're sending to Worlds, which is like, I think, an exciting prospect in itself. One team that's not sending any new players to Worlds, well, I guess you're sending M&S to Worlds, is Cloud9. Cloud9, dominant, like almost boring 3-0 over Evil Geniuses in terms of their victories, but in the gameplay, Dom, as we talked about in Power Spike, it didn't really provide the exclamation point in faith for Worlds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the issue is their early games just don't look consistent. It just looks like they get to a point in games where they just win out by being better players or making less mistakes. It's not even by being better players. I think I would feel better about it if they got around objectives and they had super crisp setups or something like that. But when you look at the EG games, like one of the games is just like a massive base throw, and the other one is just a team then EG just throwing in a team fight, just going like way too aggressive in game 3. They just all die. Suddenly Baron is lost and the whole game ends. Like, it was so surprising because I remember watching the game and it felt like this game 3 was like in EG's control. And what was like the final game time of EG versus C9 game 3? It was like a 27-minute game. It's like, how the fuck did they lose? How did EG lose in like 27 minutes or whatever it was? It just felt like they were in control the entire time.
Right.
Super weird.
Ellis, what'd you make of this series?
I mean, the C9 EG series is really weird in that EG should have won some of those games, and they didn't. They just could not close, and I think that that's really alarming for Cloud9. Cloud9, like their record and the results and stuff, it's not as dominant this year as it was last year. They do actually just look weaker. So Fudge is not actually looking like he's in monster shape, but then again, almost no top laners are, right? In the region. Everyone looks like they've gotten worse. Berserker is like still a consistent, stable piece, but Eminus looks like he's starting to get Americanitis in a lot of ways, and that's really, really, really bad because I think he's also a mega tilter. And I mean, obviously, like that. I mean, I think it's really evident in his gameplay, right? Blabber is obviously like stable and consistent, but when you look at other stuff that the team is doing and stuff, they're gonna have the same exact woes as soon as they go to Worlds. So if this is North America's best, even though you're sending like a lot of new players and stuff to Worlds and stuff, oh man, look, all I'm gonna say is that there's once upon a time where America sent people to Asia and it didn't go well. All right, so World is in Korea, and
Every single time. Jesus.
Wow.
Get
That took
over
me a
it,
second.
Ellis.
That took me a second. I was like, are we talking about...
He was talking about...
I know. Was he talking about UDOM? Was he talking about
like
CLG?
the Korean War
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah, I
like
know.
it was a very dated reference
Oh,
that he was going for.
jeez. No,
Wait,
no,
can we even
no,
include
no,
this
no.
in the final video, or you think people are gonna take it like badly?
No. It's fine. It's fine. I wanted to throw out here with Cloud9 just because you brought it up. Summit, I think, is still has like the high highs. I don't think last series he had it as crazily, but like, you know, he's been in my like top all pro. How does Cloud9 solve these issues? Like why are they getting to the point where evil geniuses have 2 winnable games and then they're throwing here LS? Like why does this team not seem to be able to just dominate?
Oh, I mean, I could give you my honest opinion, and then I can give you my speculative opinion that removes my my own belief of why this is, you know, not the case.
Whichever
C9 obviously just, I mean, C9 are kind of like the Yankees in like what, like the 90s or something like that. They do have a lot of the top talent on one team.
They do.
And the thing is that if you remove Eminus, 4 of these players have just played together for a really long time now, right? We're going on 2 consecutive years of just playing with one another. All four of the other players, if you remove Eminus, have been top in their role for several years, right? Berserker, obviously, 2 years now in a row. It's almost impossible not to win North America, and I think people don't realize that. It's like very, very difficult. It would be like T1 not ending up in like LCK finals or something, keeping the same roster for 3 years in a row. Something has to go really, really wrong for that not to happen. So
like
they're gonna go to Worlds because they function on a baseline level better than all of the other teams. But if you were to ask me like why they can't improve, why they can't, you know, push past that baseline or something like that, I would argue that there's nothing to push them past necessarily the baseline, but then I would also argue that the infrastructure that's in place at C9 is not conducive to growth.
Ooh. I mean,
it's just not. I mean, I can't go into my own story. It's just not. It's just horrible. It's just horrible. Like you can't get better with the environment that they have set up. There's a limit to what is going to happen.
Sure. I mean, that's pretty opening there. I think the frustrating part is hearing them talk about their world's experience or international experience, MSI, all of them did, and hearing them talk about how proactive the other teams were, which I think they can grasp the ideas, and then on top of it, be able to execute perfectly, which is why we saw the best way to put it is a neutered Cloud9 and Golden Guardians against the Asian teams. Like they just looked like they could not do anything. They couldn't move under tower, and you know, there's Gen G, there's BLG, just, you know, tic-tac-toe and like right through the teams here. Dom, what do you think about that statement?
I mean, I just think that they're addicted to like winning the way they know how to win. They just don't want to go out of their comfort zone and risk getting any worse in order to like break through and get better. Like, I think that the way they see it, even if it's not conscious, is that if they try to adapt and they actually try to implement the things that they learned at MSI, and they study a team like BLG, study a team like JDG, the 2 best teams of the tournament, and they actually play that way, and they're setting up dives from early minutes, they're deboarding, they're progressing the game at that pace that they're not comfortable in, there's a chance they lose. But if they just do what they've been doing the entire time, they sit back, they farm. If they start making mistakes, it's like, all right, just stall out, farm until we have like our power spikes. They'll let us get our items anyway, and then once we hit our certain level of power spikes, we'll take whatever fight like looks good. They have a good intuition for which, like, at what points the opponents are fucking up in LCS games, and they capitalize on that. They know they're going to win. So I guess like they have to make a decision, like, are they willing to potentially regress a bit in order to get better in the long run, or are they going to just be like stuck in their ways, win LCS championships and go international and lose early every single time?
Yeah.
And I mean, one thing that we can say about this is like, this is not every team that does this. I think G2 is an example of a team that was willing to potentially get worse. When they came back to Europe, they're like, okay, we can play the aggressive comps, we can get leads, but our biggest problem is that we don't have like another gear to go to. So if you look at G2's approach to this split, they were playing Kog'Maw Braum. Like that they were just forcing it in situations where Kog'Maw Braum isn't even good as like a training exercise.
Right. Right.
Yeah, because they want to know how to play with those types of comps. They're like, okay, if we can play this in a game that's uncomfortable, then, you know, if we're potentially in a situation in a series and it calls for us to bring out this type of playstyle, like we feel like, oh, you know, they're out fighting us on this day, or, you know, like this team is really strong at early aggressive champions. If we can get through games playing Kog'Maw Braum, then we'll be able to, you know, like outscale them, and it'll give us like angles to actually win a series. They're willing to take that risk and potentially become a worse team, lose some of their charm, lose some of their like ability to win super early, super fast, in order to like in the long run have a better, more well-rounded team, have multiple gears. Because if you look at the best teams in the world right now, it seems like everyone can bounce back between at least 2 or 3 different styles. They can play the engage, they can play like Annie, Nico, whatever, or they can play the LeBlanc, Jace, like side lane, poke, whatever else needs to be done. It feels like every other top team in the world has levels to their gameplay, and they have multiple different modes and ways to play the game, and it just doesn't feel like C9 is comfortable doing that. It feels like they just never will be comfortable doing that. They just want to, you know, win the way they know how to win, and then at Worlds try to catch up to the teams, and it just won't happen because you're not getting the experience in the games that matter. So even if you scrim against these Asian teams and you get to a point where you feel like you're like comfortable on some of these styles, when you get back on stage, you're going to fall to like what your habits actually are, and their habits are just not conducive to beating top Asian teams.
So the only counter argument I can think of, because both like all of us, and I think everyone recognizes the amount of talent that they have, and I'd imagine some of the investment it costs to get them, because they've all been all pro, they're all accoladed up, is to avoid being Team Liquid last year. Do you, I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like Team Liquid last year talked about trying to still decide who to play through, and on their super team with Bwipo, Santorin, Bjergsen, Hansama, and Core JJ. They were still trying to decide who to play through as it got to playoffs. And when it was a game 5, remember they were playing against 100T's, game 5, they needed to come back around. Who was going to get the resources? Who was going to be the player that you put all the eggs in the basket on? And it felt like they stretched themselves too thin. I feel like that was a Team Liquid thing. And then you look, and it's like, wow, look at the investment that they made. This is one of the biggest failures in LCS history in terms of super teams getting put together. I wonder if there's a little bit of that in there in the thinking because of Cloud9, the machine that it is, and needing to win and having a winning persona now and selling sponsorships against that and being like, hey, let's just get to Worlds and then we could do whatever. That way, you know, you know, the value of a team and the value of sponsorships you could sell goes up, which is all true. But I wonder, that's the only defense I can come up with here, that they're protecting their investment by keeping it safe, by figuring out how to win an NA, or at least get to Worlds, and then move forward. But I know that feels like a stretch. How much of a stretch does that feel, LS? Is that not really applicable?
I think it's totally copium.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at, like, I could understand that in a situation where you feel mega threatened in a really competitive league. Like, let's say you're playing in LPL and you're having these, like, best of 5s in playoffs and you're kind of struggling and, you know, you don't get there at a point where you just realize, like, hey, like, this is not working and we're not going to make Worlds if we, you know, keep going. So we need to Band-Aid. We need to Band-Aid immediately because we have, like, very tough games coming up. It didn't feel like that was the situation at all for C9. It feels like they would win NA almost no matter what they did. And I think the difference with Team Liquid is, like, Team Liquid they didn't know who to play through because they didn't know who to trust. C9 knows who to play through. They all know that Berserker's a fucking beast. They all know that they can put resources into him and play through bot lane and he can carry.
Right.
But the way that they do it is just not, like, it's not a way that's easily replicable. It's all about, like, just make, like, okay, are you fine down there, Berserker? Like, oh, you're fine? Okay, well, then you're carry the game eventually. Just make sure that he's not behind and, like, stop the enemy team from putting Berserker behind, and then you'll win the game. That's completely different than, like, getting your laner ahead. If you watched how BLG played when they played against T1, for example, they put constant pressure on bot. They were constantly diving bot. They were making sure that Elk was actually stronger every single game than Guma come team fights through, like, the whole team playing around him. Like, it doesn't feel like C9 does anything to advance the game. It's more just that they play the game out normally. They wait for mistakes, and these mistakes happen, and they just feel like it's like a solo queue game where people always say, oh, like, never give up in solo queue because the enemy team will always make a mistake. Like, we've all heard this, right? Where they're like, yeah, like, this is why you never give up in solo queue, because the enemy will eventually make a mistake. Like, the enemy will throw at some point, and we just got to capitalize on the throw. Well, the best teams don't do this. Like, the best teams just don't make those egregious mistakes. It's not like they play perfect, but the mistakes are going to be like, it's not going to be like, oh, we fucked up one thing and suddenly we're all dead and you get Baron and you stabilize every single fucking lane and you take every tower on the map. It'll be like, oh, we took a slightly bad fight, our support died, we have to wait for our support, and then they'll like fend you off of like doing a Baron, they'll stabilize the game. So I don't know, man. I think it's really frustrating to watch C9 because I don't see how this time is going to be different than the other times. Like, how is this time going to be different than the last two internationals that they played? MSI and Worlds of last year, where they got essentially just crushed. I don't see what's different.
The only other copium angle that I can take here is that they've got time. They've got time to prep before going this whole like going to Korea a little bit earlier for the boot camp, because the season for North America ends so early compared to when World starts. Gives them an opportunity to get a jump on the meta, get them accustomed to the level of play that's going to be happening there. That's again another cope take, but we'll see there. Quick thoughts on Evil Geniuses on this side, because remember, you had Revenge putting Hanser in the dumpster. You felt like the Jojopyun was going to be able to make an M&S sized hole in Cloud9, and that didn't quite work out. They also subbed in. They started Armeo and subbed in Shaden. They also played an Ivern game there for ULS. What did we take away from this EG-sided?
Ivern with no Mikhails into Ash Sejuani, by the way.
Stop,
just want to throw that out there.
Man. Stop. Come on. It's not that bad, okay?
Yeah, Ardent Sensor's a really good item after they nerfed it a million times.
Really
Mikhail's a 2100 gold item is actually just really bad when the whole identity of the enemy team is getting a pick with one of these ults. Like, this is why a lot of people don't like playing Ashe and Sejuani on the same team, is because they're both countered by the same thing. I mean, I don't know, bro.
I mean, there's even Braum, by the way, in the comp too. So like,
yeah.
I mean, it's a million times over. Like, this should never have been a 3-0. It just should not. I mean, Jojo again. Like, Jace. Look, I just don't. I don't want to see Jace in general. Like, I really just don't want to see Jace. And then Jojo, when he pulls out Azir in the final game, I felt like that was very out of character. Because Jojo just doesn't really play like these types of champions. Like, obviously he's played Azir in the past, right? It's not like, he's never picked it before, but it's very, very, very out of character. I don't know what they're thinking at that point in time. I feel very bad for like some of the players on the team. I think like the juggling that they're doing, like with Shaden and Armao. I mean, I have some insight into it, but like they're still in playoffs and stuff, so I don't want to talk like too much about like maybe what's going on. Well, what is going on there? It's an unfortunate situation. EG should have won some of those games, though. That's the crazy part. So I don't know. It's both good and bad. It's good for EG because if somehow they manage to wrap up and close things without just completely sprinting it the way that Team Liquid does sometimes, it's really good news for them. It's very bad for C9, though, that EG actually put them in game-losing spots, but then just couldn't close. Because obviously, if EG is doing this, what's happening at Worlds? Like, let's just be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I mean, I don't even know who's going to end up fourth. I mean, at this point, it seems like TL might actually end up just beating EG. EG looks really inconsistent. When you look at the games they played, I mean, they had a tough 5-game series versus TSM, like that they barely won. And then this series, they just got completely smacked no matter what advantages they gained. So it just seems like this team is just prone to throwing, like, unless they are 20k gold up at like 25 minutes, it feels like they can always lose.
Just throwing this one out there. Azir in the LCS, and I'm only going with the LCS. He had a couple games. It doesn't move the stats too much here for Jojo. Is he tied for his 4th most with Victor? He has Ari, Silas, and Ryze ahead of it, and then behind it is LeBlanc and Akali, Twisted Fate, and Jace, all with 9 games. So it's like a big cluster there. I don't think there's a great answer, but what did you want to see him play there instead? Like a back to the Trist, wasn't that getting banned out? What do you want to see from Jojo?
No, I'm not necessarily saying like I want to explicitly see anything. I just think it's very out of character, but I also think this is like a player flaw that he has as a player, where he can't take utility or control or like artillery champions into his hands and find ways to carry with them. It's like he needs to be on a lane bully or a lane avoider champion or some sort of champion that just smorks like Silas in order to take the game into his hands. It's almost like the alternative, like, I don't want to say alternative ways to play the game, but it kind of is like that. Like, can you imagine Jojopyun playing Xerath? No. Yeah, could you imagine him trying to like patiently control a game as a Nivea? Never in a million years. But it's disturbing that you could imagine like Chovy, Faker, Rookie, right? Showmaker, like Knight, like all of these mid laners over the years, you could imagine them doing these champion things because they understand that like being like a spike or I mean, that's the Magic the Gathering terminology for it, right? You just play whatever's the best and you play what's going to give you the biggest chance to win. But that's not actually the case for Jojo. He doesn't actually play what's the best. So it's a player flaw, and for that to be arguably the best mid laner in the region is a really big problem.
So the top 6 champs, or I guess the tied for the top 6 because he has 4 champs that he's played 9 times. Ahri, Silas, Ryze. Ryze is a little different than that, but I guess it's Shove and Roam, like play make that
Shove and
way.
Roam, yeah. Well, Ryze is also a lane bully in a lot of lanes.
Azir Victor. So Azir Victor after that, then it's LeBlanc, Kali, Twisted Fate, Jace. And as you said, the ones that need to control the game rather than play make the game are the ones that I feel like have less win rate, right? Ryze is 52.9, Akali, Twisted Fate are 55.6 win rates, and then Jace is at 1/3, 33%. So interesting that we're at a point now where, okay, this is Jojopyun, one of the best, if not the best, North American mid this year. Insanity might have something to say about that. Palafox might have something to say about it, but Jojo is now at the point of his career where he's starting to have trends. We're starting to critique him more than just a talent, and now he's like, hey, you're playing with the big boys. We need to see those stats back it on up, and a trend in his gameplay is starting to come up. So I find that one pretty cool. What else is pretty cool is that our friends over at Esports Bet are currently running a promo for our viewers at home. If this is your first time playing and depositing on site, you can get a 50% bonus on your first deposit up to 100 USDT. Go to Esports Bet and sign up now. The details are on the site, and feel free to contact the team over there for any more information. All right. You want to keep going?
Yeah. I just gotta.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Time for the upset. Energy is going to Worlds. It has happened. Golden Guardians show up and they get punched in the mouth. Like, Energy came to play. Palafox played great, out of his mind. Juanito playing the pulling out the Nidalee Landon Spears, except on camps. We saw that one early. Didn't do that. Remember, this is a team with no all-pro votes, except me voting for Palafox. Shout out Palafox. Outplaying the fully all-pro team on the opposite side. A hell of a series here, Dom.
Yeah, it was an interesting series. I mean, the first game started out and it felt like Golden Guardians was just a significantly better team. In 13 minutes, they have a 5K gold lead. They're ahead essentially everywhere on the map. And then they just start getting caught. They throw some of the gold lead back, but it still feels like they're in control of the game. And then when they win what should be the game-defining team fight, they are right next to Baron. Golden Guardians is right next to Baron. Instead of doing the Baron, they tried to end. Horrible end call. Wasn't even close, by the way. Like, if they had another 10 seconds, it felt like they wouldn't have ended. So they're not even close to ending. And because when you try to end, like, you're so deep in the enemy base, you just end up essentially getting canceled once they spawn. NRG, reverses everything. They take a counter Baron, and then Energy just closes the game out. It was super strange to see Golden Guardians throw like that, because normally they're pretty good at making like the easy decisions. And then throughout the series, I think that kind of just snowballed against Golden Guardians mentally. Like, it felt like this team, when they rewatch the games, is probably going to be so triggered seeing how they lost, because they should have won like 3 out of the 4 games. I mean, they just had leads and they just couldn't execute with their leads at all. And it felt like in the game, NRG was just, they felt more clutch. Like when you're watching the series, it felt like, oh, if there's a close situation, NRG is just going to win it. And if there's a situation, like if Golden Guardians is not super far ahead, they'll throw. And throughout the series, it was insane to me that River and Gory, who for my money were the best mid jungle this entire split in the LCS, were just like hard outclassed by Palafox and Contracts. Even game 1, River I thought was playing really poorly on his lead with Sejuani. He wasn't kiting once he got Trundle ulted. It just looked like he was unaware of how squishy he became when Trundle would ult him. You have like the Nidalee game where just Contracts felt like he just jungle diffed him just straight up. And then after those 2 games, they just went back to like Talia Jarvan. They're like, all right, man, like we're losing. Let's just play our best champions and try to win from there. So on the day, Energy was just the better team, and I guess they're just going to Worlds. I was happy for Contracts. I feel like Contracts has been, one of the real grinders, man. He stuck with it at a time where most people would have given up, and I don't think anyone thought he would actually make it back to Worlds. It felt like he was so far removed, and especially when he made that World Championship, it was like he was the young player on a team with a bunch of veterans, and he was able to perform under that circumstance. I don't think anyone thought he would be in a situation where it would even be possible for him to make Worlds. Even if he was playing well, like you just don't look at the Energy team. They don't look like they're equipped to beat some of these like super teams. But then again, the super teams crumbled, and he had his opportunity and he just clutched up. I mean, he just played a really insane series, like the Viego game in game 4, the Nidalee game in game 2. Just felt like he was jungle diffing.
Yeah, back in 2017, I feel like it was the Jarvan play. I feel like I remember Contracts with Jarvan. He was the young kid with the hands. And now, as he's aged up, he's had to play Sejuani. He's had to play all these other pathing junglers and get even smarter about the game. And as he said in his own words, he's just along for the ride. And it's been a hell of a ride. Very happy for him. 6 years, the longest gap in any major region for a player to go back to Worlds after their first trip. Second is Otawamne at 5 years. Keen will also be up there at 5 years if KT qualify. They should qualify, given the fact that they have all the all-pro votes in the LCK.
Yeah. Great.
Interesting stat here, LS, that comes up is Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa in this series played for all 4 games, went 40-6 between FBI and Stixxay. Neither team felt like it was a priority to ban it. And once Blueside was there, it was getting picked every time. This damn champ. What do we do with Kai'Sa, LS?
Well, I mean, Kai'Sa's changed in 13-15, right? So she can't go Ludens anymore. She has to go Leandries because she can no longer proc Plasma with
enough.
double W. I mean, it doesn't necessarily completely prevent her from going Ludens, but like now it is definitely a lot harder to do WW and well, I mean, you can't, right? Proximity matters. So now you have to go Leandries. No one's going to go Leandries. Look, it was already difficult enough to get people to go Ludens correctly. But Kai'Sa, the really weird thing about Kai'Sa, and I've said this like a million times in different videos and co-streams and stuff, is she's weak to dragon stacking because Kai'Sa needs 3 items. She doesn't get 3 items until 25-26 minutes in game. So, and sometimes even later, right? Depending on like how the early game went or something like that. 25-26 minutes is like assuming a standard game without any like accelerants or catastrophes going on. So if we assume that this is to be true, then souls are generally fought around 22, 23 minutes, typically. Kai'Sa doesn't have her 3 items, so she's really susceptible during that time period. And even the 25-26 minute mark, let's say that Kai'Sa's team even gets 1 dragon, it's still like a really dicey situation before she really comes online. But no one's intentionally like perceiving Kai'Sa this way as like a true. Kai'Sa is basically, I would say that like she's now like a Neo Kael Kosidon level 16 type thing. Like level 16 typically is like 30 minutes in game. Kai'Sa comes online at like 25, and then she morphs the game around her, kind of.
Yeah.
You
just
could
how
still
it
just
is.
go AD. You could just go AD like Gala, just completely like.
Yeah,
smurf
you
the
can do
game if
that
it's a
too.
good
You can just go
situation.
AD. Yeah, you can just go AD. Yep. That's fine.
Turtle
Don't
did as
worry. Don't
well.
worry about it. Freak. He's got us covered.
Okay. All right. He's balancing the game. Nice.
I haven't seen. Hold on. Wait. Are the new patch notes out yet? Wait.
No, it's still just the. I don't think so.
Let me go to Froxen's Twitter. Give me a second here. Okay, so we only know what the rumored changes are. Wait, what? Wait, they're forcing Caitlyn. What?
Oh, that's a freak champion.
That's a freak champion.
Wait.
Mana bugs for Caitlyn.
Freak plays AD carry.
Oh my god.
I'll see if I can slide into one of his.
he just wants
games
T1
and chat with him.
What happened was
What
T1
is
was
going
struggling,
on?
So
They
so
just lowered her passive stack requirement from 6 to 5.
Really?
They just want Guma to be able to play Caitlyn again.
It's such an Omega buff. What?
Oh my gosh! You sit in the bush and you fire three shots now. 1, 2, 3, and it's a headshot. That's crazy.
It was always 3, no?
Well, it would proc up, wouldn't it? It'd be 7. It was 7 before.
Well, right, but you need to do the third one now to get to 5 stacks. Oh, it was 7? No, it was 6.
Pretty sure it was. Was it am I
Passive Caitlyn buffs. Number of headshot stacks reduced from 6 to 5.
crazy? Okay, well,
So you still need 3 from a rush.
Yep.
But that's still a really big Kate. That's still a very, very big Kate change. Like that's actually crazy. Okay, so yeah, I mean, maybe next patch is actually going to be exciting.
no, I'm right. So like, if I'm at 0 stacks and I'm in the brush,
You
it
get
takes 4 auto attacks to get the headshot. So, or to the I guess 3 headshots will get the headshot ready, or 3 shots will get the headshot ready, and then your next auto attack will do it. Now, if it's 5 stacks, it's 2 auto attacks in the brush gets me at 4, and then the third auto attack will be a headshot. Like that's
What?
yeah. Because the brush.
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait.
Unless
what?
they-
wait.
yeah.
2, 2, 2, 2. No, to get you to full stack.
Yes, but then your next auto attack will shoot it. Whereas if it's at 6, it'll be 2, 4 headshot, 2, 4 headshot.
Wait, that's how that works.
Yes, that's how that works. That's how it'll work if that's the change that they're talking about. Whereas before it'd be 2, 4, 6 headshot.
What? The auto itself will trigger it.
Yes. If you're in the brush. If
Okay,
you're in the brush.
I mean that's even more disgusting because Ivern is like not on this list for nerfs. So like there's
No, he was
there's
already
gonna be
nerfed out
some
of the
like
game. Didn't you see people
Huh?
complaining? Didn't you see people complaining about the Ivern nerfs? He's just nerfed out of the game.
dude, no, I can't. Jamaican like
He's like, I have to
what
quit
is
the-
it
I have
with
to quit the
one
game.
tricks? Like actually, what is wrong with the one trick players? I have never let me think if I've actually met like a really intelligent one trick. Well, honestly, Cenarius actually seems wholesome and intelligent. Okay, and he's a Master Yi player. So like, what's
Spear
wrong
shot?
with the world? Spear. So I've never like listened to him. So I don't know. Is he actually good? Like,
Yeah, he's like
he fair?
reasonable. He's reasonable.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Like he'll
Because in
like
my
talk about
experience-
his champion objectively.
Okay. Because yeah, in my experience, it's like whenever you hear one tricks talk,
They think their champion
actually
sucks.
delusional.
Yeah.
It's really weird. I don't know. It's very
I think
strange.
Scrubnib is actually another example of somebody who, like, as Rengar, like, he thinks Rengar is super broken. This guy messages me, like, 3 times a year and be like, yo, like, why do pro players not play Rengar? He's really fucking broken right now. Like, he's really good. And I just keep on telling him, like, if you don't have the 10,000 hours of Rengar that you have, it is very hard to pick up this champion. Like, Rengar, there's a reason why almost every Rengar player is
Rengar
one
is like
trick.
buggy. By the way, he's buggy. You have
He
to have
feels
played
fucked up to
Rengar
play.
so much that his bugs feel intuitive to you.
Yep.
It's like weird. Like he's not a champion that you just pick up.
Yeah, it's hard. Hard to play.
Yep. You know what's funny though is that if Riven was deleted from everyone's memory and released exactly as she is right now as a modern brand new champion in season 13, everyone
so
would be
pissed.
playing her. everyone
She'll
would be
pissed
playing
on
her, and everyone would magically be able to pick her up, just like
Yeah.
Cassante. So it's interesting.
Let's reel this one back on in. I wanted to get your thoughts here on energy going to Worlds here, LS.
Well, I mean, it's really good for like CLG fans, right? Like way back in the day. Like what a way, like from the Bud Light Ace to this.
Yep.
My lord.
Yep.
My lord.
Bud Light Ace is how long ago?
It's
2021.
good. It's good in that regard,
Yeah.
but I think it's really sad in the sense that like, yes, they did just have a really big upset. Their gameplay throughout the season was so shaky, and the upset I think it is just that. I think it's legitimately an upset. We're gonna need a lot more consistent games before we can get excited about them going to Worlds. Otherwise, it's just gonna look like they're gonna get eliminated in plans.
So, how about
Play-ins,
this?
Jesus, they might not even be in play-ins. Come on.
Oh no! They're auto qualified for groups. No.
No. They have to.
Oh, they're
they
not
have to
yet?
win
Okay.
the lower bracket. Like, so assuming they lose to Cloud9, they would have to win the lower bracket.
Yeah, 4 play. Well,
Play-in.
3 is definitely playing.
They can still
4
come
plays
third.
the World's qualifying series against EU's number 4,
Okay.
and then the winner of that will go to play-ins as well. Is there any world where energy beating Cloud9 is not like Cloud9's fault? Like, can we just at some point be like, wow, energy have found the right form at the right
Depends
time,
on
and
how
they
they
have
look.
had players?
It depends on how the games look. If NRG just gets the early leads that EG has, and they just close them out, then they're just objectively a better team, in my opinion. But yeah, if that doesn't happen, then I don't know. I mean, it just depends on how the games actually look. I think the problem with NRG, and the reason why it's hard to get hype for them going to Worlds, is that even versus Golden Guardians, they feel outclassed in lanes. Like they're just behind by default. Unless they're getting ganks off, they're just behind. And when you play against better teams, like you're going to be playing against better laners, right? You look at the teams coming from LPL, like the worst laner that you have is probably the Shy. Like out of all of them, like when you look at the other 80 talent that's going, I mean, it's just Light, Elk, you got Ruler, obviously. It's really hard. Gala, like these guys are all fucking good. So it's like, where do you find your advantages as Energy? Because they'll play cleanly with the leads, and I don't know if Energy can contest better teams in the early game.
And then, LS, I'll ask you this: how do you feel about Golden Guardians losing form at this time? You worried?
No. I mean, I'm not really worried. Why? I mean, why would I be?
I mean, it's not a good time to be losing to a team that has been inconsistent when you've been the team that has been challenging.
It's
and
one
stepped up to the
series.
challenge.
It's one series in North America.
All right, there you go.
There you go.
Everyone, hop on. Take a little bit of the LS positivity while you're at it, Golden Guardians fans. It's coming through, despite the fact that they're going up against the biggest world's plot armor in the world in Jensen here in our next match. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that one, which leads us to our final segment of the day. It's time for Facecheck All In. See, I did it right. Facecheck All In, presented by Esports Bet. For a little bit of time only, sign up today so you can claim free esports coin by doing any of the 3 things. Join the Esports Bet Discord for 10,000 esports coin. Follow Esports Bet on Twitter for 5,000 esports coin, or follow esportsbet.io on Instagram for 5,000 esports coin. We're going to go ahead and pull up the site now and go with our bets that you want to follow. It's been pretty good for game time. We've gone to game time a lot. Maybe that well is still good yet again. And we'll make our picks for this week's 3 matches that we know of. The 4th one will be played based on the winners of the elimination games, which are EG versus TL and Golden Guardians versus Dignitas. So let's head on over there and take a peek. All right, guys, whenever you see it, let's call that one out. What do you see here for our bets here for Facecheck All In?
Team Liquid should be not underdogs versus EG. I don't understand. Just going off their last series and knowing all like the stuff going on with EG, with the whole jungle shuffle stuff, their draft picks and everything, I think they're so all over the place. I think they're extremely tilt prone, and I think that Team Liquid just looked a lot cleaner in the last series. So I mean, I think Team Liquid just taking the series is totally fine. I also think that like time based bets and stuff are also totally fine going into playoffs, or like the remainder of playoffs.
Yep.
Taking a look at the time.
That was great.
Thanks, Tom.
Yep. I mean,
32 minutes is the game one duration time there for EG versus TL.
the one I'm looking at is the scene or the NRG plus 1.5 maps versus C9. So either if they win or if they just get 2 wins in the series, they bring it to game 5. That's at 2.3 odds. So that's a little bit of a more risky bet. If you want one that's like, it feels like almost a lock, I would say the NRG plus 2.5. That means they just have to win 1 game. They just don't get 3-0'd. That's a 1.45. So there's a higher chance for what these odds say essentially is that there's a higher chance for C9 to, it's more unlikely that NRG lose the entire series than just 3.6 is crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's more likely that C9 win than NRG don't drop a game. Like, come on, bro. Like not like you just going 3-0. Like 3-0 is crazy. 3-0 is like very hard to do. And I mean, like they look like they were going to lose 2 games to EG. I don't think that they'll play 3 clean games. So if I was going to lock in one, I think I would just take NRG plus 2.5.
Staying on that theme, I'll stay with it because this is the lowest number that I think we've seen in a while in terms of game 1 duration time between Cloud9 and Energy. And we saw that Cloud9 did not come out swinging. They came out counter-punching, I guess, against Evil Geniuses.
Mm-hmm. And Energy has momentum.
Yeah. 30 minutes is the game timer for game number 1. Give me the over for that one. We've been hitting the over time and time again. We're going to do it yet again. Just for solidarity's sakes, let's say it out loud. Who you going with TL and EG? Who you got winning?
I have TL winning.
Yeah, I have TL winning as well.
Dang. Sad end here for EG if that happens to be true. And then let's move on over to Dig and Golden Guardians. No Jensen World's plot believers. It's a fun thing to think about. It's definitely a very fun thing to think about.
I think Golden Guardians played pretty much the worst they could, and even at their worst, I think they're still better than Dignitas.
I love that because I think it was assistant coach Choo-Choo's that said, yeah, there's at least we got that game out of the way. There's no worse that we could play. They still proceeded to not play well, but game 1 was not their game there. After throwing the game in that fashion. Do I want to pick the Jensen plot armor? I don't want to send Dignitas. I'd rather send Golden Guardians. Yeah, okay, no. We're going TL and Golden Guardians for me as well, but I think Dignitas is... I'm very interested. World's plot armor is really cool, and if that's how if Jensen doesn't want to play anymore after that, that's a really cool thing to hang your hat on. That's a record that I don't think will be broken. Like, I don't think... If he makes it this year, I don't think it'll be broken in the history of League of Legends. So a pretty cool thing to follow. I think it's Faker, right, Dom? It's Faker, and then I think it's Xiaohu that have made the most worlds. Year after year. Deft is also up there. So, I mean, it requires a player that's been playing for a long time if they're going to make it. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Those were our Facecheck all-in bets here with our friends over at Esports Bet. Again, sign up now over at esportsbet.io. Make sure to play responsibly. All right, everyone.
Huge.
There you have it. We've crushed it. Just like Energy is now crushed their doubts about going to Worlds. They've made it. Cloud9's made it. We've got 2 teams whose seasons will end this week and 2 teams that will be making it to Worlds. We'll cover it all next week on Facecheck. Thank you so much for watching. Dom, good luck with your David Goggins. LS, good luck with being Riot Korea and
Yeah, I gotta
Oppenheimer
go.
in a little bit.
Actually, you know what, Deacon? I gotta go ban some streamers real quick. So I'll see you later.
All right, see you guys
All
later.
right.
Take care, everyone.
All right, bye. See you.
See ya.
Bye.